In 1910, the Boy Scouts of America published the original edition of the official handbook written by Chief Scout Ernest Thompson Seton. Included were 14 badges of merit. The badge design and requirements for the original 14 badges of merit were borrowed from the British Scouting Association for 1 year. There's no indication or record that any of these badges of merit were earned by a member of the Boy Scouts of America. The nomenclature of these awards was changed to Merit Badge in the 1911 edition of the official handbook. As early as 1913, the British Scouting Association began to look at publishing a book with the requirements for these badges of merit and the information necessary for the scout to learn the material that they would need to pass an examination by a board review. As the number of merit badges available to be earned grew, it became apparent that a single volume would become impractical and that each badge might be better addressed with an individual pamphlet dedicated to the topic at hand. When the 1911 first edition of the Scout Handbook for the Boy Scouts of America was published, it included 57 merit badges, and the practicality of a single publication was immediately dismissed. Scouts were left to fend for themselves to find resources to learn about the subjects of the merit badges they wanted to earn. Coupled with this, inconsistencies in the quality and accuracy of the information Scouts had access to caused the BSA to look at publishing a series of pamphlets for the merit badges. By 1916, U.S. and BSA involvement in World War I placed an emphasis on supporting the war effort through Liberty war bond sales and scrap paper drives, to name a few. The paper and the industry to process it were needed to support the war effort, not to publish and print unnecessary pamphlets. While the need for the pamphlets would remain, they would have to wait until the war's end, when the BSA could devote the time, money, and paper to produce the pamphlets they had wanted to create years earlier. With World War I ending on November 11, 1918, it was just about 90 days later, in February of 1919, that the first Merit Badge pamphlet, Electricity, was produced and sold to Scouts of the BSA. This week, we'll learn more about the history of Merit Badge pamphlets in this edition of Artifact of the Week. Recently, I had the opportunity to interview John Smilek, a recognized expert on Merit Badge pamphlets. John just published a book called Boy Scout Merit Badge Pamphlets, A History and Reference. I asked John to tell me about the first Merit Badge pamphlets produced in 1919.
But the first ones were really not Merit Badge with covers. They had Merit Badge pamphlets with covers. They were Merit Badge pamphlets, but back in the day, they just had the outer paper was what was inside the pamphlet, and they folded in such a way, but they had a cover to it. And they had Boy Scouts of America on it and a image, a line art they called it back then, which is just black art on it to depict whatever the scout was to do. And then they had the Boy Scouts of America on the bottom. And it started out with the first, they call them the Type 1 white covers. There were 2 versions. Only lasted for about a year or so until the Type 2s came about, but they were, to this day, almost the same. The first 7 were a little smaller, but before they even got 6 months into them, they got the Merit Badge pamphlets to the same practical design and size that we see to this day. And but again, a white cover with line art on it, and also the name and the badge at the time, how the badge looked, were also on the cover.
Initially, 10 Merit Badge pamphlets were released. So I asked John, who was producing all of this content?
What happened, if again, for those of you that know about the history of the BSA, you probably know this, but others may not. The Boy Scouts of America were located in New York City. They moved around to a couple of places in New York City, but that's where their first headquarters was established. Well, they had plenty of universities up there, but probably the most used one was Cornell. But they went to subject matter experts in whatever topic it was that they wanted to have a merit badge on, and multiple merit people that had the ability to put them together. So they weren't made, or they were not developed and written and everything by anybody in scouting. Maybe they had added a few bits, but 90+% of them were volunteer people in academia or in a subject that they knew so much about that they volunteered their time to make the first Merit Badge pamphlets, and they've evolved since.
I then asked John to talk about the biggest change that occurred to the Merit Badge pamphlets since their creation.
The very first ones were very small. They didn't have that much documentation to them. They've gone through 10 cover iterations, and they're all on display here at the museum. And so the biggest one I can take would be a good transition point. The white ones only lasted from 1919, and the second kind of type of white ones, which were really standard size, but still the paper white cover, they lasted, both of them, till for different subjects until 1925. And it's interesting, we're having this little interview right now because it was the summer, June of 1925, exactly 100 years ago, when a chief, who was a leader in the scouting, was vice president of scouting at the time, donated $5,000 to the Boy Scouts to develop a cover. So they evolved from no cover to a cover in 1925. And one of the most iconic was a tan covers, and so that was a big change. And then after that, there were different covers. They got a little bit bigger. There was no more line art toward the end. By the World War II, it was mostly pictures if they needed something in it. And then really, post-World War II, they had a big change. Both World War I, I explained, had an effect on when the pamphlets came out. World War II, the Boy Scouts and everybody did not have enough paper or ink. So they had beautifully ornate covers that they had to stop because they only had black and red ink, and they had to use recycled paper in 1944. That evolved them even more. And then when they came back, we went through the photo overread, the photo, and then the photo ones, and then the band across the photos, and that lasted till 2007, and then 2008, we came up with the color covers that we have now. And the other big thing I would say is they had to evolve with the merit badges, so there was a lot of those merit badge pamphlets have been retired and other names come in. And the second big thing is it got bigger and bigger. I've got a large collection of these, and I could probably put 20 of them in a space this big of the first batch, and I can put about 5 because some of them are so big and slick. So that's a great question. They really have evolved quite a bit.
I went on to ask John to tell us a couple of stories that come from Merit Badge pamphlets about how they were utilized or what was unique about them or what was unique about the merit badges they represented.
One thing that changed about 1926, what came out is Weather Merit Badge came out, but it had a shooting star, and I'd like to get that on film to say, yes, it was a shooting star, and for decades nobody knew why that was. It was a quick little mistake. The people who put the art to make the merit badges that would then turn into cloth also did the art for the covers. And the person that the art went to make the Weather Merit Badge, it was originally called Meteorology Merit Badge, and the person knew that ology meant study of, so he thought it was the study of meteors. So that's why there's a shooting star. And a scout finally wrote to the BSA headquarters to go, what does a shooting star have to do with weather? And so they evolved it, and only after 2 or 3 issues, they both changed the badge and the pamphlet. Others, like Safety First to Safety. Safety First was a color designed green on white instead of white on green as we have the safety now. And there was one of the organizations within the federal government had patented a green cross with a white background, so that evolved. And the other changes is that the pamphlets themselves and the covers had to change with the different merit badges, and there was a great deal of consolidation, new pamphlets with subject consolidation, and that was a lot of fun. And also, though, they weren't the ability to keep things really clean with the badges was a little bit lax because they were doing, again, headquarters doing a lot of things. So it's fun to see some of the pamphlets that have the wrong merit badge on them, or the merit badges in like 3 or 4 different directions on the same one. So that's some of the fun of seeing when you see the merit badges themselves, that the pamphlets kind of tell a story of how they evolved and has different covers.
Early in the history of the BSA, there was a major concern about the quality of literature available to young boys. To combat this, the BSA created the book department of the National Council in 1913, in addition to the editorial department, which was responsible for the creation of manuals and other program literature. How much do you think that would have played into the development of the Merit Badge pamphlets and the quality of the writing that was in these Merit Badge pamphlets?
I go back to the fact that these were mostly by subject matter experts. And what else had happened on this? I'll give a perfect example. I found not a Merit Badge pamphlet, but a pamphlet by a gentleman, I can't remember his name, who was in charge of the forestry department at the state of Pennsylvania. Well, he's actually the person and then he put in his pamphlet that he put out for the Pennsylvania youth and adults about the forestry, about Boy Scouts. So not only did they want to make sure that they had subject matter experts, they worked with other companies and other people that brought in people that wanted also to help youth. Another one was motorboating. That started out as just, I had a different name, but it came out, and one of the Evinrude motorboating, they wanted to get more people into motorboating, so they brought them in. So that, and along with these special people that had the specialty for the ideas, you're right, Harold, the technology they use and the writing that they use was, number one, to kind of understood by youth, but number two, they tried to make it as clean and connected as they could throughout the time, because one thing I didn't say earlier, the requirements were in the book. So they knew what the requirements were. So they tried to then write books that kids would enjoy reading. And I think that's partly part of what you're going to, is back then, the kids actually enjoyed reading the Merit Badge pamphlets, because if you were interested in seeing something like astronomy, and now you're out in some place in a rural area, and remember, America was so rural 100 years ago, that all of a sudden you've got in front of you something to read about astronomy. And they had other interesting ones, a lot of farm-related ones. So you had some like pigeon raising, poultry raising, pork and raising beef production, and even they had a couple of things like blacksmithing and that kind of thing. So they had, actually another one was stalking. So those were merit badges and merit badge pamphlets. So the kids were reading them, not even just to get the knowledge, because that's what they were looking for, especially for the electives that they could use. So that brought them even more enjoyment from scouting and the papers they put out.
As we wrapped up our time together, I asked John if there was anything he felt needed to be added to the story that I hadn't already asked.
I would say the one thing that I would add to it all is, early on again, the Merit Badge pamphlets were a huge success from day one. If you go back and look at the amount of merit badges that were earned, the merit badges, they tripled in size the year after Merit Badge came out. Tripled the amount of merit badges were earned. And so these Merit Badge pamphlets to this day has probably been a great influence on earning merit badges. And actually, the second thing I could say, I got kind of three things on this. The second is that they are the most published document in Boy Scout history, other than maybe paper. Anything that's a pamphlet, a book, or anything else, I tried to make the numbers come together, but it was over 100 million copies of Merit Badge pamphlets, so they're crazy. And so that's so important as well. So, and also one last thing, it's very interesting that the pamphlets came out and they evolved too, and they helped with rank, because early on the rank stopped at first class. There was no rank of what was then Life Star Eagle, and it helped them get to those merit badges of Life Star Eagle, and the pamphlets helped with that evolution until it all became rank back around 1926 or 1927. So there's three things where the pamphlets really had an influence on all of scouting.
While John's interview provided a great deal of information about the history of Merit Badge pamphlets, with the publication of his new book, we will be taking a deeper dive into the topic in the future. Well, that's all the time we have for this week. Join us next time as we continue to learn more about the history of Scouting America through the collection of the National Scouting Museum and Artifact of the Week.